Welcome to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Tonight, we face a difficult truth. Violence in all its forms still stands between too many women and their right to live healthy, empowered lives. Intimate partner violence, coercive control, and economic abuse don't just leave scars, they steal confidence, autonomy, and opportunity. In this episode, we open the conversation on how silence, fear, and systemic barriers continue to harm women's well being, and how courage, community, and awareness can begin to heal what violence has broken. Today, I'm joined by Marissa Kokkoros. She's the founder and executive director of Aura Freedom International. Today's topic: how violence hinders women from achieving health, wellness, and empowerment. Marissa, welcome to Empowered. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
So let's begin. First, tell us what Aura Freedom International does.
Well, the freedom in our name means freedom from violence for all women and girls. So we were created in the name of gender equality, and Aura Freedom is a grassroots intersectional feminist organization really working to eradicate all forms of men's violence against women. And we do that through upstream prevention efforts and different pillars to get this work done. We address root causes, and we look at a lot of systems and systemic inequities that women face that perpetuate violence against them.
So let's begin now. Can you talk to us a little bit about intimate partner violence and what exactly it is?
Sure, absolutely. And thanks for the question and for talking about this difficult topic. Intimate partner violence is actually one of the most common forms of gender-based violence or men's violence against women. And it's really any physical, psychological, emotional, sexual abuse by an intimate partner. This could be a partner, like a boyfriend, a spouse, a common law partner, or a former partner. And although intimate partner violence can affect men, it disproportionately affects women in their intimate relationships. And it occurs in all settings, among all socioeconomic groups, religious groups, cultural groups. And when the partners live together, it's also known as domestic violence. So that term you will also hear. And in the sector, the term intimate partner violence is currently the preferred term, but you will hear domestic violence as well.
Yeah, that term came out a lot during COVID lockdown, where a lot of the women weren't going to work anymore, and they were locked in with their violent partners.
Yes, absolutely. COVID exacerbated violence against women, certainly for those already experiencing violence. For many women, we were telling women or systems were telling women to stay home, to stay safe, but home isn't safe for everyone. And home is often the very place where women and girls experience the most violence is behind the closed doors of their homes.
So we've been hearing a lot about coercive control lately. Can you shine a light on that too, please?
Absolutely. And thanks for asking. Coercive control is an ongoing pattern of domination and control where abusive partners repeatedly and relentlessly engage in psychological and emotional violence using different tactics like intimidation, deprivation, degradation, humiliation, isolation. And it's really an insidious form of violence that's constant, it's repetitive, it's deceitful, and it aims to break a person down from the inside. Some behaviors, coercive behaviors are physical or sexual violence, threats, intimidation, humiliation, and gaslighting, playing on shame and stigma, and stalking, cyber stalking as well. And then controlling behavior. So the isolation, criminalization, financial control and abuse, accusations of infidelity, micromanagement of everyday tasks, substance use, and tech surveillance. So it's really used to entrap partners in this never ending cycle of abuse.
Oh my gosh, it covers so much. Like that whole spectrum. It must be at least, 30 different things that it covers. And women need to be protected through because, as you said, it breaks you down. And the problem is when it breaks you down, the gaslighting begins as well.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Yeah.
So I was going to say,
It's
when we come back, I want to talk more about this. I want to talk more about the coercive control. So please don't go away. We'll be right back with more information for you. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today's topic: how violence hinders women from achieving health, wellness, and empowerment. Marissa, you were talking about coercive control before we went to commercial break. I want to talk about the physical violence part of it, please.
Yeah, coercive control can also include cycles of physical and sexual violence, but not always. However, whether physical violence is present or not, the constant threat of experiencing that violence is enough to maintain control over the woman and her children or loved ones. So imagine a home where a violent explosion has happened. A survivor was harmed physically, verbally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. Then for a while, there's no physical violence, right? There's this kind of fake peace. The survivor will do everything she can to keep that peace, to keep explosions from happening, walking around on eggshells, agreeing, submitting, shrinking every single day, becoming a shell of really herself. Does that mean there's no violence in the relationship because there's no physical violence happening now? No, that cycle is violence. That explosion, calm, I'm sorry, honeymoon phase, tension rising, explosion, calm, I'm sorry, honeymoon phase, never do it again, tension rising. And that cycle is what entraps survivors.
So, how can someone recognize coercive control and if it may be happening to them?
Yeah, coercive control is a challenge to identify, even for service providers and frontline workers, because it's hard to see it. You can't point to coercive control and say that's it. And that's why those of us who work with survivors will hear them often say, sometimes I wish he would just hit me. And I don't say that lightly. But that is the sentiment because at least I can prove, at least I can show someone that there is abuse because coercive control is so hard to see and it's not really fully understood. So we have to look at the patterns. The patterns are what form coercive control, those patterns of abuse. Um, if survivors do leave, very often they experience post separation abuse as well. So those single events in isolation don't paint an accurate picture of what coercive control is really, really all about. To an outsider, isolated incidents might just look like an argument or a disagreement or a relationship that's breaking down or where, there's not great communication, but there's something much deeper and damaging at play. And so the most important thing to remember with coercive control are the patterns and cycles. And that's why we kind of have to shift the script from why doesn't she just leave to understanding, truly understanding coercive control and how it entraps survivors. And it's really designed that way.
Well, that's a lot to take in. I want to switch over to economic abuse. How does it manifest in situations of intimate partner violence?
Well, the majority of intimate partner violence survivors also experience some form of economic or financial abuse, and it's used as a tactic of coercive control. And economic abuse can make it more difficult, obviously, for survivors to escape violence since they may not have the resources to secure housing and employment or even meet their basic needs for themselves and for their children. Economic abuse is strategic. It creates further dependency on the abuser, right? Think about it. How can you move forward and be independent without money? These days, folks can't survive even when they are in control of their finances, let alone when they are experiencing economic abuse and economic coercion and control and even sabotage. And then when you pair that with systemic racism and economic systems that discriminate against marginalized groups, you're looking at an intersectional issue as well. So after economic abuse, many women are left just with shattered financial situations, and it takes them years to recover. Many into their senior years are still recovering from financial or economic abuse during domestic and intimate partner violence situations. Um, and we see abusive partners continuing the economic abuse even after post separation through child support dealings and family court proceedings and more. It's like, if I can't abuse you directly anymore, I will find a way to do it by forcing you to spend money you don't have, by making you go broke through lawyers. And literally, that is the extent of the power and the control.
Oh, there's so much here. Don't go away. We'll be right back with more. This is important. Make sure you come back. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today's topic: how violence hinders women from achieving health, wellness, and empowerment. Marissa, before we went to break, you had talked about economic abuse and intimate partner violence. Some people would just say, "Well, why couldn't you go to couples therapy?" What about couples therapy? Does it help?
In a word, no. In fact, couples therapy in situations of intimate partner violence isn't just ineffective, but it can put the survivor at further risk. So, this is not a situation of relationship troubles or disagreements that can be solved, by talking it out or something like that. Intimate partner violence involves serious power imbalances that play on gender inequality and misogyny and really old patriarchal views of women that still rule the day. So, couples therapy is not recommended for women experiencing violence in the gender based violence sector. And many survivors report increased risk of violence due to triggers during these sessions, right? So, during couples therapy, it often involves conversations about compromise, right? Or sharing responsibility. She'll compromise here and he'll compromise there. But abuse is the responsibility of the abuser alone. There's no responsibility to share. And that idea of compromise really expects survivors to be accountable for the violence that they face, right? So true safety and healing require survivors to have a space to heal on their own by specialized frontline support services that truly understand violence against women and is free from the presence of that person who's harming them. Yeah, so couples therapy is certainly not recommended.
So at the beginning of the show, we had mentioned that a lot of the women were locked down with their abuses during COVID lockdown. How does intimate partner violence affect women in the workplace and in their lives in general? And how does it stop them from achieving successes, health, wellness, financial independence?
Intimate partner violence doesn't stay at home. It follows the survivor to work every single day, to her meetings, to her workplace, to the team building events. It impacts the overall performance. And the majority of survivors are employees, right? So studies show that the violence affects them at work deeply. Not to mention digital abuse. So the survivor can still be reached by her abuser at work. Financial abuse and abuse to children and pets that is happening sometimes as well alongside the intimate partner violence. So how could this not impact survivors at work? Of course it does. Survivors are forced to resign sometimes or let go due to the impacts. And this is the intent of the abuser at times. It's strategic. And it not only affects their performance, but the way they're treated at work due to the stigma, due to a lack of understanding in the workplace. And there's a misconception also that IPV happens to certain women who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, or women in low paying jobs, or women without careers. But women from all walks of life experience violence. Many women in high positions do experience violence as well. And so the doctor, the nurse, the daycare teacher, the principal, the professor, the cleaner, the engineer can and do experience violence.
So, on the flip side, can you share an example of how women's leadership in the workplace creates positive ripple effects, not only within the organization, but also the broader community or industry?
Absolutely. And thanks for this question, because I share this a lot and I think I'll continue to share it because I think we forget that women in most cultures are the backbone of their families and their communities, right? Carry everyone on our backs, and everything hinges on women and women's work, whether it's paid or unpaid. Okay. The fabric of our communities is woven through the tired hands of women. So when you break a woman down through violence and oppression, you break down everyone she's carrying on her back. One study showed that spousal violence alone in Canada costs Canadians $7.4 billion a year to deal with the impacts, not to mention long term health impacts, physical and mental health. And we can draw a straight line from violence against women and family violence to many of the pressing social issues of our time, like homelessness and addiction and mental health issues, failing economies, intergenerational trauma, right? Because violence can be cyclical and it's not always, but it can be repeated by children who grow up witnessing it. So, in the
Marissa,
same
I'm
way,
just going to pause you right now because there's so much more that you have to say here, but we have to go to break. So
all
hold on
right.
to that thought. Please don't go away. We'll be right back with more. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today I'm joined by Marissa Kokkoros. She's the founder and executive director, Aura Freedom International. Today's topic: how violence hinders women from achieving health, wellness, and empowerment. Marissa, let's talk about men. Where are men in all of this, and what about their role?
Yeah, where are the men? It depends. Some are involved, but most aren't. Not enough aren't. Not enough are, sorry. So men must be engaged in the conversation and they have to engage themselves. Violence against women is not new and it's not going away anytime soon. In fact, femicide rates are on the rise. And so men must be involved because violence against women is a men's issue, as most violence against women is perpetrated by men. So, what normally happens in these conversations, and I have them very often in my work, is a well intentioned person will say, man, will say, well, I'm not violent. I don't use violence with my partner or my children. I empower my daughters. I respect the women in my workplace. I'm good. Hashtag not all men. But there's not enough accountability and no desire to create a community and a culture of care. It's the women who are not only experiencing men's violence, but we're also the ones picking up the pieces of it on the front lines. Women are creating that culture of care that is needed to deal with men's violence. We are, for the most part, the trauma counselors, the shelter workers, the helpline operators, and the researchers of men's violence. And even if that's not our line of work, right? The activists or the ones speaking out or hosting shows about empowering women. It's not enough for men to say, I'm not violent. It's not enough. There's too much violence in the world. It's up to men to pick up a sign and march alongside with us, to hold each other accountable, to do better, to reach out when you see something unhealthy that a peer is doing, and lead. If you lead and live without violence, show someone else how to lead like that. Lead the way. So the misconception of feminism's critique of masculinity is that we're saying men can't be masculine anymore, whatever that means. Masculinity itself is not toxic. Masculinity is beautiful when it's rooted in respect and honor and safety and fun and adventure and nurture. And yes, men nurture too. Men are great nurturers, right? It's when masculinity is oppressive, when it uses force and dominance, and when it causes harm that it's unhealthy. When masculinity causes harm, it becomes something else. And that is what needs to change. We're not trying to change men so that they are no longer masculine. We are reframing masculinity in its original form. And feminists are tired, but we must engage the men who will listen. And there are many great men who will listen to this. And we tell them, this is how you fill your protector role. Because the world really is always talking about men being the protectors, right? But we don't talk about women needing protection because of men and from men, right? So we like to talk about this and open these doors. What if men took care of themselves and of each other, just like women take care of each other and protect each other, right? Women have been the protectors of women. And so we need men to do what they say they are going to do. Yeah.
Well, a lot of men do watch this show, and a lot of men, because we
Great.
we cover everything. It's all about empowering everyone. So a lot of men do watch this show, and we never bash men here. We love men, and we want to make sure that they are alongside us as we grow older or whatever it is that we do. We have less than a minute left, and I have one more question for you. What can women do to support each other in the workplace and outside of the workplace?
Oh my goodness. In the workplace, reach out, even if it's hard, say something like, I noticed you get a lot of texts or phone calls from someone. I just want to check in. Is everything okay? And we have a lot of resources on how to, check in without judgment and all of that. And then outside of the workplaces by building the sisterhood, listen to your sisters, support them, um, walk alongside them. The sisterhood heals. It heals me in this work. And as women, this is how we advance as a society. And we are also accountable to the ways that we also contribute to the patriarchy or harmful things. So accountability for ourselves as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Marissa. This has been wonderful today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Marissa wants you to know women are the backbone of every community. When you break down a woman, you break down all the. Oh, sorry. Sorry, guys. Marissa wants you to know women are the backbone of every community. When you break down a woman, you break down all those she carries on her back. Empowered, healthy, and safe women create empowered, healthy, and safe communities. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski, and I'm here to empower you and make frugality fashionable. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.